So the two poems we are looking at today fall into the category of medieval times, which was how long ago? Almost 1,000 years ago? 1,000 years ago? Right. But Professor, are you sure these are poems? I mean, I thought the poems were shorter. These were more like long stories. I mean, one of them must be all about love, but the other one, the whatever it's called, the other one, it's all about fighting and battles. I mean, can both of them be considered to be poems? Well, think back to the very beginning of this course. Uh-huh. Remember how we define poetry? In the very broadest sense, we said it's written to evoke or to make you, the audience, have some kind of emotional experience through the use of imagery and some kind of predictable rhythm. And usually, but not always, there's more than one meaning implied with the words that are used. Let's start with chanson poetry first. That's chanson. Chanson poems became popular in Europe, particularly in France, and the term is actually short for a longer French phrase that translates to "song of these." Song of deed. These now they are called songs of deeds because, strangely enough, they are written to describe the heroic deeds or actions of warriors, the knights during conflicts. なんでこれ strangely enough と言っているんだい？何が strangely enough なんだい？ We don't know a lot about the answers. It still contests somewhat, but we are pretty sure about who the chanson poems were written for. That is, they were written for the knights and the lords, the nobility that they served. The poems were sung performed by a minister, a singer who traveled from castle to castle, singing to its local lord and its knights. Well, would someone summarize the main features of a chanson poem you read? Well, there's a hero and a knight who goes to battle, and he is inspired for his courage, bravery, and loyalty. Loyalty serves his country and his fellow warriors in the field. He's a he has a he's a skilled fighter, willing to face the most extreme dangers, willing to sacrifice anything and everything to protect his king and country. Okay, now, be given that the intended audience for these poems were knights and lords, what can we say about the purpose of chanson poetry? What kind of feeling were it meant to provoke? I guess they must be really appealing to those knights and lords who were listening to them. Hearing the song probably made them feel more patriotic, made them feel like a good noble things to serve their countries, and whatever way they could. Good. We've got a pretty good picture of what chanson hero was like. Now let's compare that to the hero in the other poems. The other poem is an example of what's called romance poetry, And the hero in the Romance poetry was also a knight. But what made the knight in Romance poetry different from the knight in chanson poetry? Well, first, uh, the purpose of the hero's action was different. The hero in Romance poetry is independent, purely solitary in a way. ソリタリーってなんだっけ？一人だけの。Solitary in a way, not like the chanson poet who was always surrounded by his fighting companions. He doesn't engage in conflict to protect his rose or country. He does it for the sake of adventure, to improve himself, to show him worthy of represent and love for his lady. He is very conscious of the particular rules of social behavior he was to live up to somehow. And all of those actions are for the purpose of proving that he is an upright, moral, well-mannered, well-behaved individual. You may have noticed that in chanson poetry, there isn't much about the hero's feelings. The focus is on the actions, the deeds. But the Romance poetry describes a lot of inner feelings, the motivations, psychology, you could say, of a knight trying to improve himself, to better himself, so that his worth is the love of a woman. アホかっちゅう。What it explains this difference? Well, digging into the historical context tells us a lot. Romance poetry emerged a few generations after chanson, and its roots were in geographic regions of France that were calmer, where conflict wasn't central to people's lives. A more peaceful time meant there was time for education, travel, more time for reflection. Another name for Romance poetry that's often synonymous with it is troubadour poetry. Troubadours were the authors of the new Romance poems, and we know a lot more about the troubadours than we do about the chanson authors because they often had small biographical sketches added to the poem that gave pretty specific information about their social status, geographic locations, and small outline of their career. This information wasn't particularly reliable because they were sometimes based on fictitious stories, great adventures, or the scribed together from parts of the different poems. But there is enough to squeeze or infer some facts about their social class. The political climates have settled down enough so that the troubadour has the luxury being able to spend most, if not all, of their time creating, crafting, or composing their love songs for their audiences. And yes, these poems were also songs. Many troubadours were able to make a living being a full-time poet, which should tell you something about the value of that profession during medieval time.